Alrighty guys, here it is, the ball lightning build for speedrunning Sigil 100s that you guys have been asking for. This is the exact same one that I've been using to push the leaderboards. You can see we have tons and tons of already verified ranks, and there's a bunch more that I still have to upload. It's just, you have to put the timestamps on it, and basically, it takes some time. You have to have these verified for the runs. But this is going to be one of the best builds if you're interested in maybe looking at speedruns. There's a lot of theory crafting that is going on right now in the community, but I'm going to be straight up with you guys. Barbarian, Sorceress, and Rogue will probably be the only classes that will be viable for any speedrun sort of build. So let's go ahead and start right off by just getting that out of the way. If you guys are interested in competing, this is kind of a build for that. However, you could still use this build if you are interested in maybe just clearing out Sigil 100s as quickly as possible. This is going to be more of a video for like the top 1%, the players that really want to push the character to the max. And there are some changes that we have added to this build that you can apply to any ball lightning sorceress, but this is specifically meant to be a speed runner build, not necessarily going to be the best in terms of DPS, because the most important thing when you're trying to do a speed run is, well, not die. Because if you die in any speed run, well, in Diablo 4, you pretty much are just out of the race. You cannot compete if you actually are dead, right? That is because a lot of these dungeons, unless you get a checkpoint, you have to walk for like 20-30 seconds, and that basically means you can't do the objective fast enough. So starting right off, what are the changes here? So just as a heads up, if you guys haven't seen my previous ball lightning build, I will also link that down below, as I'm going to assume that you have maybe already played ball lightning, as I want to use this video to basically go over the biggest changes and some of the things that you want to be on the lookout for. However, if you want to use this as reference, I'll kind of explain as much as I possibly can in a shorter time frame, because I want to go over the more important things. So starting right off, we're going to be using ball lightning for our skill, and then we're going to run Frost Nova, Flame Shield, Ice Armor, Blizzard, and Teleport. So let me explain the skill choices. So first off, obviously, yes, ball lightning is one of the best skills in the game. Now there are some maps where I may run certain other skills, and there is a note over here that has a couple like little references. So depending on the map's objective, you may want to run certain things like the little shield dome that can just basically give you one free objective in the map. That one is pretty useful. There's also a lot of times where I just personally prefer running Frost Nova, and that is because if I freeze all the enemies, if I have to untie someone for objective, or I have to push a lever, Frost Nova is just one of the best skills in the entire game. Whereas certain other things like the unstable currents, well, that ultimate, it's kind of good for damage, right? And that is only really for ones where there's going to be like a boss that's like ASAP that I need to like eliminate, or at the start I know that there is a double elite that you need to destroy in a room before progressing to the next one. So there is going to be some variances here on, depending on the map that you play, you may want to run certain other things. Like this map over here, the shield dome is actually a pretty good thing to run. But yeah, Frost Nova, it just lets you complete objectives a lot easier. Same thing with Flame Shield, because it allows you to put more points into it. If you happen to have Shaco, you put a lot of points into Flame Shield, giving it that extra duration. So the default is 2 seconds, but you can put a lot more points into it if you have Shaco, and that allows you to have a little bit more duration to complete the objective, which really helps out when you're just trying to untie, like you see right there. With Ice Armor, it just keeps your survivability up. We're actually running Ice Armor enchantment over here because you want to be moving as fast as possible. The one downside with when you're moving as fast as possible, you don't have time to apply the aspect of disobedience. That's where I really like Blizzard. A lot of people wonder, why are you running Blizzard? And the thing is that it applies basically a amount of stacks of disobedience that you normally wouldn't get. Plus it does chill the enemy, and it does act as our source of cold damage for the Tal Rasha ring, because Frost Nova does not actually deal any damage. Then, of course, we're running Teleport, because, well, what kind of speedrun build would not have this? It lets you teleport through walls. It's the only thing that really makes Sorceress competitive when it comes to speedrunning. So, as far as enchantments go, Ice Armor to survive, and then Chain Lightning because you need it, because it's for mana. So as far as the helmet goes, like I said, Harlequin Crest, aka Shaco, is pretty much the best in slot for most builds, but you can run Binding Embers. There's also the Shield Dome that can be thrown in anywhere that you want to, but I actually really think that this is good for certain maps. Again, some things are only good for certain maps, and it depends on the map that you're playing. That's why you'll see some of my skills rotate here and there, because I want to be able to play for that specific map. And then as far as the chest armor goes, you don't have to run Aspect of Fortune. There's actually several other ones that you can run that are good. So you can run Disobedience and Pants, and then over here, this is where I'm going to have to like hit this edit button. So there's a few different ones that you can run. You can get damage reduction with the Mage Lords. I've seen people use this as well, but if you wanted to throw in a basic and run Might, that's another possibility. But there is also one that gives you damage reduction based off of if the enemy is vulnerable. So that is called the ever living aspect. So you can also think about ever living aspect. So this is a good one as well. It's kind of up to you. Do you prefer to get the extra lucky hit chance, or again, depending on it. Sometimes I do swap out pieces of gear. As far as speedrunning goes, you're allowed to swap gear. You can't use the uber unique, the spear. That one is actually banned, so you can't use that one. But again, certain things, if I look at the map and there's like bonus damage to barriers, yeah, this one is quite excellent for that. I would probably recommend running Everliving as well as Disobedience, and in the Helm slot, it's kind of optional. Ideally, you have a Harlequin Crest. And Darkness is not bad for survivability either, but there are much better options, because having the plus maximum life total armor and getting maximum mana, those are the 3 stats that are really good. And if you want Int, you can get a little bit more resistance, because when you start pushing in the higher sigils, because speedruns are only meant to be for Sigil 100s, you really need to throw in Skulls, because it's just harder to reach the cap with certain classes like the Sorceress versus other classes like the Barbarian. But anyways, as far as the items go, I'm going to mouse over the things, and I'll mention anything that is kind of different from what we would normally play. If you happen to have perfect crit on your gloves as well as a perfect crit on your ring, you can actually drop Esu's Heirloom and still maintain pretty much 100% crit. And then if you want to, you can run Flicker Step, because Flicker Step actually has a defensive stat that you cannot actually normally roll. And that is because you get damage reduction from close. The other option is to roll Melted Heart of Selig and then also throw in Low Life in the build. So that is another option, but it does require you to take a certain amount of damage and then not also die by taking that damage to get to Low Life, which is another aspect that you can try to shoot for if you really want to get all of these other things lined up. But I just don't happen to have Melted Heart of Slig, and that would also maybe require you to swap during boss, because, well, if you lose out on Elementalist aspect, well, losing out on 60 crit chance means you're going to be losing out on a massive amount of damage. Still running the aspect of Ancient Flame here, and you do want to run a wand over a dagger, because additive damage is kind of useless when you compare to at the higher stages of the game where lucky hit matters a lot. Other things that some people have talked about and wonder, like, why don't I play, you know, Ryman of the Infinite? Why not play Tybalt? Well, I don't really like picking up the Crackling Energy. When you have to pick up Crackling Energy that is behind you and you're trying to go as fast as possible, well, you're slowing yourself down. If you're running out of energy at any point, yeah, that's not going to be good. And again, it's up to you if you want to play that build. I actually kind of swapped and been running another node for the Ball Lightning, which we'll get into as well. But for the most part, Rymant and Tybalts, they're just going to be insanely squishy. If you're trying to push Sigil 100 and you don't have your Disobedience up, you're dead instantly. Like, just try it out yourself. Look at a lot of the different builds that are recommending Tybalts as well as Rymant. Try to watch them do speedrun Sigil 100s for 20-30 minutes straight. I'm talking back-to-back runs. They're more than likely going to be failing them. And that is simply because the damage is too high. Unless they're sitting there stacking up their Disobedience, which means that you will be slowed down. So again, if you want to try it, by all means, it could in theory be faster. But again, the one problem with speedruns in Diablo 4 is if, let's say, you fail the run, well, you can't just open up the same exact sigil for the exact same map and try to go compete on leaderboards. It's not like a Greater Rift where you can just keep on rolling to hopefully get a good one, because you need to get that sigil, and there are mods that you cannot actually run. A lot of the ones where it says damage specifically that is taken over time, it's just way too much damage. It doesn't really matter how much you know, poison resistance or any of the resistances you have. It just does way too much damage. Realistically, a lot of people will just skip out on those. That you're also seeing like that some of the timestamps for some of these maps, because I started labeling them. Anyways, so Elementalist aspect, one thing that I've changed, instead of running cooldown reduction, and you don't have to get cooldown reduction in your helmet as well as in your amulet anymore. And the reason why is because I've actually swapped up the build to actually reset your defensive capabilities in another way, and I like that a lot more, because I would much rather get total armor, as it's a very important priority stat to actually get when you want to do Sigil 100s. Again, this is for the 1% that's interested in speedruns. Pretty much, that's the only thing that's really different with the amulet. Obviously, Talrash's is the best thing in the game. Then you need Gravitational. As far as the Vampiric Powers, you have a few options. If you really want to, you can drop certain offensive ones. Like, I dropped the Poison one for normally to activate the poison for the Talrasha Ring. You can run Undying, you can run Sanguine Brace, you can also run Resilience. Any of those are great options, because again, if you want to be competitive on the leaderboards, you need to not die, as well as being able to survive while not proccing certain things. Sometimes you literally have to walk through monsters if you want to be a speedrunner. you're going to have to do certain things that are not conventional. And that's where, again, certain things like Frost Nova really help out. So as far as the skill tree goes, ideally you have a Shaco, but I made the build without it so you guys can actually play it without it. But there are some options, and if you really want to like proc with Frozen Orb, you can do that instead. Another thing is that like if you have Shaco, put as many points as a Flame Shield as possible. And the reason why is even though it only gives you 0.1 seconds, sometimes that is the difference between living and dying, and it also lets you complete an objective a little bit faster. So a lot of things where speedruns are actually ruined because you get interrupted, and some of these runs take lots and lots of times. So one of the things that is really nice that I really have been enjoying is Elemental Attunement. This one is fantastic. So max this one out. It makes it so you can potentially use your Flame Shield twice, activate Teleport again, or even using your Ice Armor again, like instantly. And it is so dang good when you're just trying to do speedrun. So I like that a lot. You can also get Enhanced Frost Nova if you want to, but usually when I'm using Frost Nova, I'm not using it to actually eliminate the enemies. I'm just using it so I can try to complete objective a little bit faster than what you're supposed to. Other than that, there's not really anything here. I mean, I literally only put 1 point into Blizzard. The gameplay, I'm running a Shaco, so I don't even need to put a point into it, but you don't need to put anything else in here. You're not looking to deal damage with it. If you really want to, maybe you can make it so certain things cost less mana or have it last a little bit longer, but for the most part, again, it's just to activate Disobedience a little bit more. And then at the bottom here, again, you can run Unstable Currents if one of the things has like a map boss, or there's specifically like 2 elites that will block a room that's like really early on. Certain maps will have that, and Unstable Currents, sometimes I like to run it. It does definitely help out in the boss speedrun, like it's like 3 seconds faster, and if you're playing any sort of build for speedruns, every second counts. I'll tell you that for sure. There's some of the runs that were on the leaderboards that like, I was looking at, like I'm just a couple seconds off, but you know, that matters, right? At the end of the day, this is the difference between winning and losing on the leaderboards. We're also running Estus Ferocity. As far as the Paragon board, nothing has really changed for me. I feel like this is a really solid Paragon board. Things that I've considered to swap is perhaps Unleash. You can maybe get some more damage since we did drop some damage. And on top of that, on the skill tree, actually, this is one of the most important things that I need to mention right here, is specifically on Ball Lightning. This thing is absolutely ridiculous how fast that this can actually activate. Like, I'm genuinely impressed how fast this Ball Lightning can actually activate. You can see sometimes in groups, right now you'll see it where my bar is, it's at 24 right now. It sometimes, once it's like active, it just goes to 50 like instantly, and it keeps on stunning things. Now, there is a threshold at which enemies getting stunned too many times in a row, it just won't like work again, and it doesn't like give you any prompt on that. I wish it really like told us that. And then there is something else that I've actually considered, which is like the extra 40x multiplicative damage if the enemies are stunned. But if I really wanted to get like extra damage, I could just run like Tibalt's. So I don't really feel like damage is a problem. If it takes me like half a second more, sure, that could actually add up. But again, try out the build with not activating your Disobedience, walking through monster with Tibalt's and Ryman or Godslayer if you don't happen to have Harlequin Crest, and you will notice that it's just like impossible to compete with some of the barbarians. So you have to build a little bit more tanky, and certain things just allow the build to be a lot stronger in the tankiness department, and that is because, yeah, running things like Disobedience, Ever-Living really do make the build so much stronger. But that's pretty much it that I wanted to go over. Again, if you're looking for like the full build, because I wanted to kind of make this video more so about like the certain things that we would swap for the speed run versus going over like the whole build and explaining things. There's a whole like written part of it that kind of explains certain things when you would want to swap certain things. But there it is, guys. That is the build that I've been using, that we've been shooting for on the leaderboard, and we may actually go push with Barbarian. I'm gonna be honest, I think Barbarian's probably one of the best characters in the entire game right now for this season, especially if you're interested in doing the leaderboards. Just check out the amount of Sorceress that exists, and check out the amount of Barbarians that exist in terms of the leaderboard. It is a pretty big, massive difference, and that is because Barbarian has the Hodo one-shot. But it doesn't mean that Sorceress isn't good, it's just that there is a huge difference between being able to one-shot the objective and having to sit there and channel for a little bit, basically, to get the objective done. However, you do have the ability to teleport through walls, and for some of you guys that were wondering, is Oculus good at this build? Hell no! Oculus will teleport you in random directions. I know you can override it, but Oculus doesn't do enough damage. It's a huge problem, but if you really wanted to, you can weapon swap to it. I just found it to be too tedious to weapon swap to that item, unless I had a macro, and macros, and a lot of things are not allowed for the speedruns. But anyways, that's gonna wrap it up. That's the update for the Ball Lightning Sorceress that you guys wanted for the speedruns. Again, this is not meant to be like, Sigil 100, best DPS. This is meant to be more so in the speedrun department. But that's gonna wrap it up. If you guys enjoyed it, drop a like. If you're new, subscribe to the bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care. Peace out.